Okay, so her account is Na. So N-A. No, her name is Noel. Her TikTok account is NAWALORNOEL. Okay, so full credits to her. Let's see her theory.
We heard about the plan all along, but now we know how it's being executed. Step 1, clear the north. Step 2, chase them from area to area in the south until they are literally cornered. Step 3, continue to unalive them while they're trapped. Step 4, force them into Egypt through the Rafah border. And officially, step 5, let Egypt build a buffer zone in the Sinai Desert as 1.4 million Gazans face displacement, which means the entire population of Gaza will be crammed into a literal box in the desert. Not only did these people go through literal hell for the last 130 days, they were unalived, starved, lost everything, displaced. And prior to any of this even happening, we're already living in horrible conditions just because they were from Gaza. And now you mean to tell me they're going to take every single person who is from Gaza, shove them in a metal cage in the literal desert, and then proclaim victory over H? I guess if that was the plan all along, they have officially succeeded. They have cleansed the land of its indigenous people, and the entire world watched it happen.
I mean, sources about this being the plan. Does she know where she's like? Again, I'm not saying this is not the plan, but can you tell us how you know this is the plan? Like, do you know, Rivka, how she thinks she knows this is the plan?
I'm not sure, so when you first hear it, so moving people from um one place to another to prevent civilian death, okay, then going into Khan Yunis because that's where the Hamas was. And then, but I don't know where she's getting this thing that Egypt is going to make metal cages to put people in. Like, I'm not sure about that. Like, that just sounds hyperbolic to me. And whose plan? Like Egypt's plan, because she showed the headline about
Egypt
how
has Egypt is like always saying like there's no way I'm letting anybody in. Like constantly throughout this,
right.
this is the number one red line of Egypt is like this border will remain closed and
Yeah.
we will not allow anybody past here. This is the only thing we hear. The main thing we're hearing from Egypt is this. Their
Right.
main red line is this. Yeah.
And their border fence is even more scary looking than Israelis. I mean, it's got 3 rows of concertina wire, and I mean, Egypt is like, no, nobody's coming in here.
Nope.
And so I don't know whose plan, right? I'm assuming because
Israel's
of
there's
that.
Israel's plan. They're
Exactly. That's
saying it. Yeah.
exact.
Yeah.
I'm assuming
But
that that's what she means, but with the cooperation of Egypt. But she showed a headline saying Cairo is building a buffer zone. They're an
yes, that's a good point. Okay. Actually, you're right. You're right. You're right. Like, so her conspiracy theory, again, I'm not saying your conspiracy theory is not true, but if you're saying it's true, you need to provide a source for me. The only source she has is Egypt is building this buffer zone, okay, in Sinai. But Egypt is the most picky, is the number one entity that is fighting against anyone going through. These buffer zones might be like for selected group of people or like I don't know, just in case the border fails kind of scenario. You know what I mean?
right.
That might be it. But
And if you read
yeah,
this, it says, first the clickbait is the face displacement, but then it says Cairo is preparing an isolated security zone at the Gaza border to possibly house Palestinian refugees. So, like,
yes,
first of all,
yes,
Cairo, Egypt, they're their own country. They make their own decisions. They're building this,
yes.
possibly house refugees. I don't know. The other thing I think that maybe she might be responding to, and although I'm not quite sure because of the timeline she's showing, is that with this military step into Rafah, I know that Netanyahu recently talked about if we go into Rafah, we're going to have to have civilians evacuate that. So how are we going to,
Yep.
and he was talking about moving, talking about it with the military cabinet. I don't know. So is she referring to that? Was she referring to when they first went
Well,
into, I don't know.
okay, so here's the thing, okay? Obviously, some people are going to get through the border, and some people are Egypt allows to get through the border. These are selected group of people that have special cases and special, like they are,
And
some
money,
people have two
sometimes people
passports.
pay to
Yeah,
get.
some people have. Yeah, but this is a very limited number of people that Egypt lets in. This is like not even the number of people that get through and Egypt allows in is not. It's a small fraction of the population of Gaza. It's a small fraction. And if they build some refugee camp there just to be able to house these people and like monitor them and collect their information and do whatever processing that they need to do, that refugee camp is not at all remotely close to something that you would build for 2 million people population of Gaza. Like I'm pretty sure if Egypt was building something that could house this many people, this would be headline news, right? Given that it goes completely against everything that Egypt has been saying, that they were not going to do something like that. This is probably something a lot smaller than what she's making it out to be. Also, what she's showing us is something, because she's accusing Israel of having this plan, and then she's showing us something that Egypt is doing. I'm pretty sure Israel and Egypt would not be cooperating on such a plan, given that they have conflicting interests here. Like, if this conspiracy is true, Israel would want Gazans to leave, and Egypt wouldn't. Then why would Egypt be cooperating with Israel in building this in something that they are against? This conspiracy theory makes no sense. Even if Israel, like there are some people in Israel that would want this to happen, that would want Gazans to just go to Egypt, it wouldn't happen like this. This is not how it would play out with the cooperation of Egypt. So yeah, your conspiracy doesn't make sense. And also, I also want to point out, you go ahead, Rivka. I want to also point out something else after this, if you want to say something.
Point out what
No,
you want.
okay, she uses the word literal in a very funny way. She used it 3 times. Okay, so she mentioned they're gonna go into a literal hell, which I don't think that's possible. Okay, it's literally hell. Given that hell is a metaphor, I don't know. I don't think hell is in this world. And then she said going to put them in a literal box. So I like literal box. Like I don't know. That doesn't make sense either. But the funniest part was that they're going to be shoved into a literal desert. Okay, if they're going to be, as opposed to what, I want to ask her that. Like, do we have figurative deserts? Like, do we have, I don't know, symbolic deserts? Because I think most deserts are like, I don't know what could have been, if they weren't being shoved into a literal desert, what would have been the alternative? I don't know if you need to say literal before desert, but yeah, go on, Rivka.
So also to that point, that is the only time when she actually used literally appropriately. It is a desert.
But
Sinai is a
yes,
desert, okay? All the
but
other times, what literal hell? Like figurative
what literal?
hell would be the right
Yes,
way to say that. It's
yes.
like a figurative hell. But yeah, so I
No,
think it's,
but Rivka,
I understand your
no.
point too. Yeah,
But even if she, so the first 2 times she's not using it correctly, they are figurative boxes and figurative hells. But the only one time that she uses correctly is still not correct, because we don't have an alternative option to a literal. Like
right,
there's no other, as opposed to what? Yeah. So, anyways,
of the desert of her argument. Um
yeah,
but no, I was
yeah,
also gonna I was
yeah, go.
also going to well, one thing that I noticed is she's got an American accent and then she says Rafa, Rafa, it cracks me up
Yeah,
when
yeah.
people do that. But
No,
anyways, um
that gives her a sense of legitimacy. Like people are like, oh my
right.
god, she's pronouncing a ha and a re. She must know something that we do not. This
Rafa.
conspiracy must be true, given that she's saying ra.
So, but another point I wanted to make was that she's making all these assumptions and she's saying all these things that she it seems like people are already accepting as true. For example, when she was saying, here's all these things that happen to people and they were already living in the most horrible conditions. Some people maybe, but if you look, there's tons of videos on TikTok of people showing, look how beautiful Gaza was. Water parks, mansions, people were able to move freely, or not all of them, but some. There were, I think, 19,000 permits for Gazans to work in Israel before the 7th. So people were moving in and out. People were making money. People were leaving and coming back. I mean, so I'm not sure what she's trying to say is that it was already a literal hell and now it's a extra literal hell. Like this argument that it was just the worst place on earth. It was, sure, it may not be the greatest, it may not be Monaco, but it also isn't this concentration campy type, or it wasn't prior to this, horrible place of ultimate suffering. But the point I'm making is that there's these arguments that people are already accepting as true, and then they build other arguments off of those. And so you have this whole crowd of people that believe these things, and then they build all these other non-truths or untruths off of it, or half-truths. So I just wanted to bring that point up. And where she gets the metal cage, like what metal cage? Anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm pretty sure there are so many journalists there taking pictures. I'm pretty sure if they were building metal cages to put 2 million Palestinians in, or 1.4 million Palestinians in, that would be a lot of metal cages, and I'm pretty sure people would have been, that would be noticeable from space. That would not be something that you could hide, okay? And it's very strange that she has figured it out and no other journalists have.